Strap on your tanks and dive right in. Underwater Videographer is live right now.
From this moment on, you will now be known as Sharkbait.
Equalize your ears and grab your dive bag to start collecting some tips, tricks, product announcements, and information for every hobby and professional diver interested in knowing what it takes to capture the clearest footage.
Sharkbait! Welcome, brother Sharkbait!
Get ready to explore the depths with the Underwater Videographer Podcast.
Sharkbait! Enough of the Sharkbait. Sharkbait! Ooh, well.
Happy holidays to you, and welcome to the Underwater Videographer Podcast. My name is Brian. Now, many of you likely remembered an American television adventure series that ran from 1958 to 1961 that got you started into scuba diving. This popular program was called Sea Hunt and was even more popular in syndication for decades afterwards. Now, many of you know the program followed the adventures of scuba diver Mike Nelson, who was an ex-Navy frogman turned freelance diver played by none other than Lloyd Bridges. Now, not everyone who watched Sea Hunt got into scuba diving, but there's probably a high correlation of baby boomer divers who got into diving because of this popular program. Now, we are the Underwater Videographer Podcast, and we thought that we would like for you to relive the memories of this special program, and not only that, but commemorate the 50th anniversary of this popular TV show.
What are you doing here?
Taking pictures. And if I don't get any good ones, it'll be all my fault. The visibility is something terrific down there. I'm fixing up a homemade mine detector.
Oh.
Finally managed to round up enough electrical equipment from the village to do the job. I've been diving this area the last couple of days. Boy, it's the greatest.
Yes, it is.
Hope I get some with my camera. Those coral formations down there, boy, oh boy, huh? Hey, I didn't notice that before. Who's a lucky guy?
Well, it keeps people from bothering me.
Oh, you mean people like me, huh? They're really something.
Someday I'm going to learn how to use an underwater camera myself.
Yeah, no time like the present. Be glad to teach you as soon as I get rid of my tanks, huh? I'm going to hear it. Okay, and got some magnets.
But let's not talk about it anymore now, all right? Thank you, Mike, very much.
Let's go spongy, huh?
Now, in the spirit of commemorating this 50th anniversary of this popular show, Marshall Karp sat down with very popular people on the show. Jeff Bridges is here with us on the Underwater Videographer Podcast to tell us what it was like to be around his dad during the shooting of this program. Susan Silo, as many of you know, she's a Hollywood actress with numerous television and movie credits, and she got to guest star on the Cougar episode of Sea Hunt, one of the many women on this program. Susan Silo is here with us on the Underwater Videographer Podcast, and Eric Hanauer, who is going to be interviewed today by Marshall Karp. Now, Eric is a widely published writer and photographer who specializes in the underwater world. What's special about Eric is that he did an interview with Lloyd Bridges about 18 months before he passed away for Discover Diving magazine. The article, you might have read it, was republished in Skin Diver magazine as a tribute after his death, and he shares his memories of Lloyd Bridges and the article backstory. So here is Marshall Karp and his first interview with Eric Hanauer.
Now, the focus of our talk today is Eric did an interview with Lloyd Bridges about 18 months before he died. It was published in Discover Diving and was republished in Skin Diver as a tribute after his death. How you doing today, Eric?
I'm doing fine. How about you, Marshall?
Oh, just fine, just fine. Was there anything that you wanted to add to your background?
You pretty well covered it.
Okay. All right.
Probably the only other thing is that I'm doing a lot of video these days, and I'm involved in the San Diego Undersea Film Exhibition, which is an annual affair here in San Diego.
Excellent, excellent. Well, why don't you first tell us about your diving background?
Well, I started diving in 1959, which was during the heyday of Sea Hunt, although Cousteau's Silent World book and movie were more of an influence on me than Sea Hunt. I was in the Army when Sea Hunt first started, And I never saw it until the last couple of years it came out, and then, of course, I continued to follow it through reruns for many years.
So let's get into your memories on the backstory on your article on meeting Lloyd Bridges and the article.
Well, I was doing a series of articles for Discover Diving magazine on an oral history of diving.
And what year was this?
This was probably, mid-'90s. And basically, I had a chance to interview some of the people that were the big names and the pioneers back when I was starting to dive. And one of the people that I really wanted to interview at the time was Zale Perry. In fact, the whole project really got off the ground after I did the Zale Perry article. And, of course, Lloyd Bridges' name came up during the Zale Perry interview. And I asked her if she could get me in touch with Lloyd Bridges. And she tried, but he was at that point very, very reluctant to do any interviews regarding diving. He always felt he was severely typecast, and even though the Sea Hunt series jump-started his career, it got him typecast, and he had a hard time getting serious acting roles. And as you saw in the article, Bridges always considered himself an actor first and a diver way, way down the line. So at the time, he was trying to break that Mike Nelson mold, and it took about 2.5 years for me to finally get an interview with him. Zale kept trying, and I talked to other people who had contact with him. And I think the turning point was when he received the Reaching Out Award from DEMA. And for the first time, I think he realized the impact that he had on a whole generation of divers because he was so wonderfully well received at the DEMA show. And shortly after that was when he finally consented to an interview.
Did he call you, or how did you rank that?
Oh, I'm a little foggy on that.
Publicist, perhaps, or?
Yeah, we worked through the publicist and all of that, and I finally called him and set up an appointment for an interview at his beach home in Malibu.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful beach home.
Was his wife there when you went
Yes, and she contributed a tremendous amount to the interview. Bridges himself was a very, very careful subject for an interview. He was really treading on eggshells to avoid anything negative. He didn't want to say anything negative about anyone, and it would have been a very plain vanilla interview, except that his wife sat in on the entire interview, and she had a few anecdotes that really brought life to the whole thing.
Yeah, I read those in the article about going out to Hawaii and what was that? Having the admiral of the fleet ask him to inspect things and
ask him to make the emergency ascent
and equipment recommendations and
yeah.
And he kept saying, "I'm an actor. I don't really do this." So
right.
That's funny. So what was your first impression when you first met him? What was that?
Oh, he was very, very gracious, very friendly. Didn't act like a big-time movie star. I think one interesting thing is that in his entire house there was only one picture of him as Mike Nelson. There were a lot of movie posters from his other movies and from his son's movies, but only one picture of him as Mike Nelson. There were no diving artifacts at all in the house, and he really downplayed his diving throughout the interview. You may recall he said that it wasn't until the final year, it was a 4-year series, and only in the final year did he do some of his own stunt work. Most of the time he was just used for close-ups, and he was not even a certified diver until after the series was over. Then he and his family went down to dive and surf and finally got certified.
Interesting. What did you come away with, and what do you remember after all these years from the meeting?
Well, I was really happy that I was able to do it. It was a 2.5-year effort, and it finally came to fruition. I was a little bit, I won't say disappointed, but I expected maybe a little more life in the interview. A little. He was very PR conscious, very careful in everything he said. Again, as I mentioned, I was glad that his wife was there to add some life to it. But overall, he was a very gracious host, and I came away liking him a lot.
Great.
Very, very likable person, and a very unpretentious person.
Wonderful. Well, let's come back to present day here. What projects are you working on now?
I'm still doing some freelance writing. I've got a 2-part series coming in the December and January Discover Diving on the interaction between humans and sharks, taking the shark's point of view. I'm doing a lot of video work right now, and that's about it. And still a lot of traveling, a lot of diving. We were in Palau and Yap just a couple months ago. I'm going to be the video pro in Yap next September. So we're staying underwater and blowing bubbles.
Good. And for further information for our listeners, let's give your website address.
It's ehanauer.com. That's spelled EHANAUER.com.
All right, good. And the article is still up on the internet for our listeners. It's just a little bit tricky to get to, but you go to www.skindiver.com, and Skindiver has a hyphen in there. It's 2 words, skin-diver.com. Click on their articles tab, click on the personalities tab, and then scroll down about 3/4 of the page, and you'll come to the article. So please read the article. I've read it a couple of times here the last couple of days. It's wonderful. Any parting words for our listeners, Eric?
I can't come up with anything profound except stay underwater and keep blowing bubbles.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your busy time and valuable time to spend with our listeners on our special Sea Hunt 50th Anniversary Commemorative Podcast. I'd like to close our talk quoting from a line from your article. It's the last line in the article. And to quote, it says, "Acting or not, Lloyd Bridges was responsible for putting an entire generation of divers underwater. To us, he will always be Mike Nelson." Very well said, Eric. Very nice article.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
I'm talking to Susan Silo. Susan is a native New Yorker, and her parents were actors, so she was born in a trunk, she says. She started her career at the age of 4 on radio, television, and in theaters on and off Broadway. She's a graduate of New York's High School of Performing Arts, was a teenage rock and roll recording star, and performed a featured role in the original West Side Story on Broadway. Susan moved to California and continued her career as a television actress, guest starring on L.A. Law, Unsolved Mysteries, Highway to Heaven, The Love Boat, Bonanza, Batman, Gunsmoke, and others. She starred as a regular in the TV series Occasional Wife. Susan has appeared or voiced more than 75 TV shows and movies, and in recent years she is a popular voiceover on numerous animated shows. How are you doing today, Susan?
Oh, I'm doing just great. I'll wish you an almost happy Thanksgiving. This is the time of year that we're doing this interview, so it's kind of fun to be able to kick back and talk to you and reminisce about a show I really love doing.
Yes, we're going to be talking about your Sea Hunt guest appearance, since this is our special 50th anniversary Sea Hunt commemorative podcast. But first, let's talk about your career. Is there anything you'd like to add to my introduction?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah, I have a feature film that I did a lot of animation on, animation work a lot of voices for the new Disney film called Food Fight that's coming out in 2008, and I think it's going to be a blockbuster, funny movie.
I'm sure it will be. We get all the Disney
so.
and Pixar movies, and we just love them too.
Yeah, they're really, really great. And I just finished wrapping up another series, Nickelodeon, called El Tigre, and I play Sartana, Queen of the Dead.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of Frito Kahlo kind of animation that's really beautiful, and it's based on a Hispanic kind of story, and it's really, really quite fun too, quite interesting. The kids are loving it.
Great to hear.
And of course, Curious George is still running, and I play Nettie Pischetti on that one,
yes.
the Chef Pischetti's wife.
Yes, I'm familiar with that too.
And Robot Chicken, and a bunch of the newer stuff, that's on. You did mention a lot of the show. Shaolin Showdown is still running, a show that I did, the Chalk Zone, and then, of course, the rest go back in time, but there's always new stuff coming up. Oh, and I did the video Dr. Dolittle 3, which was a lot of fun.
I saw that on the IMDb.com credits. Yeah.
Did you? Yeah. It's really, they've been keeping up with me pretty good. Then that feature with Julia Roberts, the Ant Bully, which they had a big premiere at Grauman's Chinese Theater, if you're familiar with that, right here in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And instead of walking the red carpet, get this, because Tom Hanks was the producer, he had a green carpet because we were all ants.
Oh, okay.
Is that cute or what?
That fits the theme, yes.
Isn't that great? And then inside, when Tom Hanks was doing the intro, to the movie, and all the ants, the people who played the ants, were sitting in the front, they had people coming out with sprayers to spray us, obviously not with something toxic, but just, we were hoping it was champagne, but I probably think it was seltzer.
Oh, how exciting.
Isn't that fun? But it was a big premiere, and they closed off Hollywood Boulevard just like they did for any other premiere. Isn't that fun?
That would be. How exciting to be out there. Well, let's talk about your Sea Hunt guest appearance. Now, through my internet research from the Scuba Guy website, I see that you guest starred in the episode Cougar. It was first broadcast May 6, 1961.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes. So what do you remember about that? Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, I remember a lot about it. I will say this about Lloyd Bridges. He was such a gentleman, and, he was a star, and there I was guest starring on it with a lovely actor who has left us also since then, Robert Ridgely. And he was so gracious. The first time I'm on the set, and I'm the little girl from New York, and I really mean a little girl. I was barely ready for college, and he introduced himself. Hi, I'm Lloyd Bridges. Welcome to the show. And it was just so generous of spirit and so lovely, and it makes an actor feel welcome, and you're ready to rock and roll then.
How did the casting process come about for that?
Well, the casting process came about exactly the way it always did for episodic television. And as you said in my intro, I did a lot of episodic television. And you had, your agent in Hollywood here who would submit you for roles. And then if you were lucky enough, the way I was, directors and producers would get to know you, and it was almost like repertory. You'd go from episodic show to episodic show. That's why I did, all of the shows you mentioned. The directors wanted me, the producers wanted me, and it was just a wonderful time to be doing work. And then, of course, you went to audition most of the time. Sometimes you got it without an audition. They just said, we want Susan for it, send her the script, she's booked. That's always ideal, but that isn't the way it happens all the time. Not even now.
Do you have any memories of Ivan Tors?
That is so, to me, isn't that funny that of course the name, but, well, I will tell you that what they did to me is that I did have to actually look like, a stunt person did my underwater work, but I did have to look like I was going into the water, and I was wearing, the tanks, the flippers. Well, when when they first put those those tanks on, that's a bunch of years ago, they were much heavier than they are now and much more cumbersome. And they put them on this little girl who barely weighs 100 pounds, and I fell face down in the sand.
Oh, my.
And they said, okay, guys, get the dummies. So they put the dummies on me, put the flippers on me, and there I am in this suit, and they said, okay, run into the ocean. It was not exactly, to me, the most elegant sight.
That's how they did things on Sea Hunt, I guess.
But that's how, I guess how people who do dive or people who, are used to wearing that paraphernalia feel very comfortable in it. But, just like me, all that horseback riding as an American, Native American, which is now PC, I played a lot of Native Americans in, long braided wigs and rode bareback, and this gal ain't no Native American.
I understand.
But I did it, That's what an actor does.
That's right. You do what they direct you.
You do what the director says and what the script says. But it was a lovely experience, and I had the opportunity later on to be in a theater company called Theater West out here, which is still going very strong and is quite wonderful, with Beau Bridges. And
fun, too.
Yes, and Beau is such a delight and a wonderful talent. I never knew Jeff, really, but Beau I did know, and we attended that together, and I will see him, every once in a while, reminisce a little bit about that, and about his dad. I had met Lloyd's wife a few times, and they were just a lovely, you're talking about a really fantastic family, theatrical family. Was it really, really an impressive family.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. This is exactly what our listeners will want to know.
Yeah, and I thought that the underwater photography, remember I said to you Lamar Boren, I remember that name.
Yes.
Was absolutely...
Photography, yes.
Yes, was absolutely wonderful. I mean, I was amazed at what I could do underwater, and I never did it.
Hollywood is. It's
all smoke and mirrors.
Susan, do you have any parting words for our listeners?
Well, I am so grateful for the loyal fans and for people like you, I must say, Marshall, that really keep us alive, keep our names alive, keep our work alive, keep supporting us so that we can do more work and bring you, I guess, a pleasure, in watching us, what we do, and some enjoyment in your life. And, I just like to thank all the fans, and I hope that they enjoy hearing some of these reminiscences and knowing that some of us are still here and going strong, and we continue to do that until it's our time to say, adios.
Very nice. Very well put. Now, for those that are interested in more information, let's give your website.
It's SusanSilo.com. Very simple.
Very, very good, and very nice website, too.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, you can hear me on it, too, aside from all the pictures, that you can see. And I had a very good person help me out with that. And we try and keep it up to date, so, you can always tune in and see some more.
Excellent. Well, Susan, thank you very much for participating in our Sea Hunt 50th Anniversary Commemorative Special. On behalf of all of us here at the Underwater Videographer Podcast and our listeners, we wish you continued success. So thank you again.
Thank you, Marshall, and continued success for all of you.
All right. God bless.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, Jeff, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Marshall. How you doing?
Oh, just fine, just fine. So we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of Sea Hunt production and the airing of it, and I was wondering if you could share some thoughts and memories you have of your father.
Absolutely. I don't know where you want to begin. Why don't you ask me a question?
Okay. Well, what do you remember about Sea Hunt? I was doing some internet research, and I see that you were actually in 2 episodes. I realized you were pretty young, but what do you remember of those?
Well, unlike a lot of actors, my father really encouraged all his kids to get into showbiz. He loved all different aspects of it. And that being so, he, whenever there was a part in Sea Hunt for a kid that was one of his kids' age, he would, say, for instance, he'd say to me, "Hey, Jeff, there's a part coming up. You want to be in Sea Hunt?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know, Dad." He'd say, "Well, you get to get out of school." I'd say, "Okay." So it meant getting out of school and going to work with Dad, and I guess it was a bit like, a cobbler probably teaches his kid how to make shoes, and my dad taught us how to act, And my first memories as an actor is being thrown off the Malibu pier there, and water just, freezing, and I'm trying to deliver my lines, like that, just inhaling is all I could manage.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, did you used to watch Sea Hunt when it was originally on?
Oh yeah, sure. I was, every day coming home from school, we'd sit and watch it. And my dad, it was sort of a double-edged sword for him, that part, because he pulled that part off so well, the part of Mike Nelson, that people actually thought he was a skin diver, that they gave some acting lessons to, but everybody believed him so thoroughly in that part that years after that show was over, he had a hard time getting work as anything but a skin diver, for some skin diving roles.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very frustrating for him. But he loved playing Mike Nelson, loved going all around the world, getting turned on to the greatest diving spots in the world,
Sure. Now, what was it like? What was it like for you to go to school and your friends were watching Sea Hunt?
That was kind of fun. Yeah, I mean, well, upside and downsides to that. There was that whole thing. Who do you think is? Just because you're Mike Nelson's kid, you get a lot of that kind of stuff. But, it was a very popular show back in those days. I constantly get stopped on the street from people, oceanographers and divers that'll tell me, I'm doing what I'm doing because your dad did what he did, and he really turned so many people on to the sea.
Me as well. Yes, that's how I got into diving.
Did you, really?
Yeah, just I would watch that every day, and I was so into Sea Hunt, Jeff, that some of those episodes when your dad was trying to save somebody's life by holding his breath, I'd be holding my breath just along with him to see if I could outdo him.
That's right. I remember getting in a cab once in New York, and the cab driver was talking about Sea Hunt. He said, "Oh yeah," he says, "when I was a kid, I used to take a vacuum cleaner and I'd put it on my back, and then I'd take my mom's pantyhose and I'd put them on, like a wetsuit." And kind of a silence fell on the cab as he described his get-up there.
That's great. Now, do you dive, do you?
I have in the past. I haven't in years, but my dad took us on some really wonderful trips. Like I said, wherever we would go, divers would want to turn him on to their special spots. And I remember one time going to Hawaii, and some fella took us out to some spot he loved, and it was the seas were particularly rough, and my dad kind of blew his middle ear there. His balance was off, and he would get seasick. And I could tell as we were going out to the spot that he was kind of feeling not so good. And I said, "Dad, you all right?" And he said, "Yeah, when I get under the water, I'll be all right." We finally got to the spot. He rushed on, got his tags on, did his flip over the side. And as we're going down, I'm kind of leading the way, and I feel a tug on my fin. And it's my dad, and I look up at him, and he's motioning for us to go up. And I said, I say, "What?" I shrug my shoulders, and I point down, and he says, "No," and he points up. And I point down, and then he takes his mouthpiece out and proceeds to vomit underwater. And big school of fish come and eat up all little chunks. And then he points down, and we go down to this.
That happened.
Oh, Mike Nelson. That's a vivid memory.
I understand that. Mike Nelson blew chunks underwater. Wow.
That's right.
Any talk of a sea hunt movie that you know about?
There has been some, but unless it was an exceptional script, I would, I wouldn't want to join that venture,
Mm-hmm.
But I'm open. It's a great story. It'd be wonderful to be a part of in some way.
Oh, that would be.
I know my dad was always frustrated that sea hunt was never in color, because the colors, as you know, are so beautiful down there.
What about any of the people that were affiliated with Sea Hunt? Are you still in touch with any of the actors or actresses or any of the crew members or anything? Or?
No, I have very vivid memories of Ivan Tors, the producer of Sea Hunt, who was quite an interesting guy.
Tell us about that.
Well, I just I can remember him, and he also did the show Flipper, I think, but he loved the water, loved adventure, Africa.
What about the boat, the Argonaut? I understand that your family got to use it in your personal lives?
I don't remember that.
Hey, I just read that on the internet.
Yeah.
But you were on the boat, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, doing the show, doing Sea Hunt.
Okay.
I remember the second Sea Hunt I did, I got to act with my girlfriend at the time, Andy Kaplan, who was my next-door neighbor. And it was one of my, I think it must have been my first singing on film, and I sang "Oh Susanna" in a cave. We shot that off behind Leo Carrillo there, that surf spot.
Mm-hmm. What about today? Do you catch your father in any television show, movies, or reruns or anything?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love to whenever I'm clicking through the TV and see him on there. I'll always watch. It was great as as an actor to work with him as an adult. We did Tucker together.
Tucker, wonderful movie, yes.
And Blown Away. And I remember when I was blown away, I told the producers, I said, hey, I know a good guy who could play my uncle. He looks a bit like me. He's a very good actor, Lloyd Bridges. Are you familiar with this guy? And the producer laughed, and he said, oh, yeah, your father, he's a great actor, but he's really thought of more of as a comedian. I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, the airplane movies and so forth. And I said, oh, gosh. So they made him read for the part.
Oh, my.
But that was another example of doing a job well, and too often people think that's who you are, so.
Yeah, that was his line. Yeah, his line was, I picked a bad day to give up smoking and
that's right.
drinking.
Yeah,
on and on it went. Running joke, yeah. Yeah.
We all got a kick out of my dad playing that part because he was such a health freak, and he would never do any cigarettes or drugs or anything like that. So to see him in that state, we all got a kick out of it.
That's great.
I've got an interesting Sea Hunt story. When I was making the Fabulous Baker Boys in Seattle years ago, I was getting ready to go to work, and I heard this trumpet music playing outside my window. And I looked out there. There was this bald, kind of overweight fella in a tight-fitting Madras sport coat playing a trumpet, looking up at me, and didn't think too much about it. Early in the morning, I hadn't really woken up, and went down there to get in my ride, and this fella comes up to me, and he's got this little piece of paper with very small writing on it. And I said, what is this? He says, are you Lloyd Bridges' son of Mike Nelson? I said, yeah, that's me. He said, well, these are the cues I have, and these are the ones I need. I said, wait, what are you talking about? He he said, the sound cues. And I realized there was these little marks, and I realized what I was hearing, what he was playing on the trumpet was that sea hunt, that sea hunt music. And this fellow was a savant, and his particular area of expertise was sea hunt music. Ziv, music from Ziv, the production company that produced the Sea Hunt. And he wanted to know if my father could get him these other sound cues. And I said, well, gee, that was, 30 years ago. I don't know if, I'll check. And, of course, my dad had no idea what he was talking about. But later on, that fella, his name is Richard Peterson, made a wonderful documentary called Big City Dick, and he plays some of that sea hunt music. And if anybody's interested in finding out about this fellow, they can go to my website, which is jeffbridges.com, and go on the stuff page, I think, and you'll see Big City Dick, and push on there, and there's a wonderful documentary about him, and see if you can get some of his music on there too, I believe.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I'm just now, as we talk here, some other memories are surfacing from my dad. Just while you have me, I'll just kind of...
Yeah, we're still rolling. Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember, my father was a real champion of the environment, and I remember he encouraged all his kids to take part in it, and I'm a member of the Surf Rider Association, which is all about keeping our coastline healthy and our waters clean, and he was very involved with that, and also the United Nations, and he always kind of brought us up. I remember that photography book called The Family of Man, and I remember him getting that for us and talking about how we're all in this together. We're one big family. We got to take care of each other.
If this is too personal, let me know. But how are you doing with missing your dad?
It's funny. I hardly miss him at all. I kind of feel he's still here in a funny sort of way.
How's that?
Well, we were very current. We really, there was no unsaid business between us. We were very close, and we just, right up to the very end, there's nothing kind of left out. I know that I have some other friends friends that have passed away that I feel a lot more kind of sorry about, because I felt there was some unfinished business, and I felt that there was so, much that they hadn't done and they could have done. And my father had such a full life, did so many great things for so many folks, and I loved him so much, and I still love him, and I know he loved me, and we told each other all the time, and I whenever I talk about him, like we're doing now, I kind of feel him, he's right here with me, and so it's kind of, the words kind of stick in my mouth, but I don't really miss him that much, because I feel he's here still. He's with me.
I rejoice in that. Now, what about your plans and projects here? I understand that you have a big movie, a couple of big projects coming out.
Well, I have a movie that should be out this December called Amateurs. It's going to open in just 4 cities, and then if it does well, it'll get out nationwide. But it'll be in Los Angeles, Dallas, Minneapolis, and Seattle, and the movie is called The Amateurs. And so how would you describe it? Frank Capra, the man who made, It's a Wonderful Life?
Oh, sure.
It's a movie that it's sort of like if Frank Capra made an adult film. That's kind of the essence of the film, of this movie. It's a comedy. It's got some performances in it. Great ensemble cast: Ted Danson, Joey Pantoliano.
I look forward to it. Tell us about Iron Man.
And then Iron Man's coming out next year in May. May 2nd, I think, is the release date. We've got a wonderful cast in that one. Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow, Terrence Howard, Jon Favreau directed it. There's a good trailer that I saw. You can see on the internet. Kind of give you a little teaser of it.
I've seen it. I'm interested in it.
Good.
Good. Do you have any parting words for our listeners?
Parting words. Yes. Always dive with a buddy.
Good advice. Good advice. Well said. Well, Jeff, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Underwater Videographer Podcast, for Brian, for our listeners, and myself. Thank you very much for taking a few minutes out of your day, your valuable time to spend with us on this special Sea Hunt 50th anniversary commemorative episode.
Well, nice talking with you, Marshall, and glad to know there's so many folks out there that love Sea Hunt and keeping the memory alive. Have a good one.
Thank you.
And that does it for another Underwater Videographer Podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week answering your questions and having more great interviews in the world of underwater video. See you next week.